start with how on earth what did you make of that game on Saturday? That was nuts.
Josh could see it. Yeah, it was a nuts game, wasn't it? Wow. Wasn't surprised really at how the game unfolded. I was like you. We spoke before we come on air here, and we were talking about that team lineup, and just think again. I was really concerned about the lack of creativity and where was the pace going to be in the side. We're going to be so reliant on those fullbacks. And having watched Spurs the week before, I really felt that they were there for the taking. I felt that there was an opportunity. And I think as that game unfolded, there was no doubt that there was an opportunity to give them a really good game. They looked fragile, didn't they? They didn't look at the races at all. And I think we played into their hands in the first half with that selection. We were so pedestrian again with the play of Ali Nusin. I like Stuart Armstrong's, but it's a very safe player. He's not going to commit people. And I think just at this stage of the season, it's that opportunity where you really have to have a go at it now. You have to really take the game because nothing to lose. We have to take games to teams and we have to try and win games. I actually feel, after watching that final 15 minutes on Saturday, that I think we've got players that can really make a difference in that squad. I just think they need to be utilised now. And he really needs to, I think, grow a pair. And go for it. Come on, Ruben, let's have a go. It's not worry about losing games. West Ham, we have to go to them. I'm going to keep it tight for a bit. Let's just try and win some games. Because scored 3 goals at home. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's almost like you want him to let the reins off a little bit and do something a bit outlandish because that's like you say, it was almost like he was trying to play it safe, but it seems very counterintuitive, especially against a very negative Spurs team. I had a quick chat with Benji, right, for the Daily Echo before the game when the lineups come out, and we were just chatting about the where the goals were going to come from, and neither of us saw it. Benji said, and I agreed with him at the time, and to be fair, to an extent, still now, he said we would have had to have been perfect to get 0-0. With that front four, and to be fair, he wasn't wrong. If we'd stayed like that the whole game and we weren't forced into subs through injury, and same with Tottenham and circumstances of the game, we probably would have been happy with a 0-0. Keep it nice and tight. We had to let go, didn't we? In that second half, we had no choice. But yeah, I mean, a word for the subs, by the way. I thought Maitland-Niles did a really good job coming on. I've read a stat actually regards to the substitutions. It's the second game that game at the weekend was the second game in Premier League history to see both sides make substitutions, 2 subs each before half time. The other one was Newcastle against Wigan in April 2006. So yeah, those are the only 2 games that's ever happened. So I thought in the circumstances, Maitland-Niles did really well coming on. I mean, Sally did what Sally does. He's pretty solid. You can tell he's still naive in parts, but we know that. We know what we get with Sally now. And yeah, I mean, apart from those who had to come off and those who replaced them, did you have anyone in the starting 11 that you well, first of all, who was your man of the match, and second of all, who sort of stood out from that starting 11? Because for me, I thought Theo Walcott was outstanding.
Theo Walcott for me, he was man of the match by a country mile for us. I thought he was outstanding. Showed what he showed in the recent games for us. Real leadership, but real quality when we needed it. And I thought Romeo Lavia, I talk about him on this podcast all the time. He is some player. I'm absolutely to sit and watch him every week. The pass that he's made for Walcott to set the Adams goal up, he's taken out 3 players with a 1 pass. Exactly what we needed against Brentford was somebody that could find a killer pass. And Romeo Lavia does that in an absolute abundance. It's just an incredible pass. And Theo's bang on it because he looks fit. He looks like he wants to wear the shirt. He's got a bit of passion about him, and it was a great goal. He did really, all from Walcott and Lavia. And I think Lavia is a top player. A standout for me. And James Ward-Prowse, a lot of people will talk about him not being a leader, not having bottle. mate, he showed he had real serious bottle there at the end, didn't he, with that penalty. He took it so well against his best friend, someone that he spoke about in the garden with the penalties and stuff. And no doubt Fraser would have saved many of James's penalties, I would have suspected, in the garden. But Prowsey, mate, you were absolutely superb. You for me, like, you emphasise everything we're all about at the moment, and just trying to bring everybody together. And he does it. He works hard for us, and thank the Lord we've got Prowsey with us.
Yeah, it's almost hard to imagine the team without him now. I don't imagine. I don't even want to think about where the sort of situation we would be in this season if we didn't have him, especially with the goals he's been providing and everything around that. Yeah, I mean, Theo was outstanding. I had him as my man of the match. I thought he was brilliant. Something about playing against Spurs in it with Theo. It doesn't matter. He could, I think you could wheel him out when he's 80 and he could put in a performance against Tottenham. I think age doesn't seem to bother him, but yeah, he deserved his goal. Everything around it as well was brilliant. His movement, he just showed that nous, that experience that's been lacking. And to be honest, when I looked at the lineups, I thought the only true threat we're going to have going running towards the goal probably would have come through Theo, which is saying something for a player that many had written off before the season, and to be honest, myself included, didn't really fancy him. But he's really showing why we don't get paid to make those decisions, why we're in somewhat naive through the passion that you have as a fan. But I don't know. Theo was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, again, worth making Niles. It was a real shame to see Bella Kotchap fall to the shoulder again. He seems to struggle with that, and Bednarek. I don't know how certain people feel like this, but he is back on the grass with Poland, so that one's nowhere near as serious as first thought. So it looks like he'll be back in the starting 11 against West Ham. Yeah, it was interesting. The way we set up before the game was much like Brentford, wasn't it? I mean, walking to the ground, all I heard was people queuing up for the programmes and getting the burgers and looking at the lineup and going, "Why is Moyes starting? Why is Moyes starting?" He did all right in the first half, but for me, he's a nothing player. He takes up a space where someone like what we were talking about before, Martin, someone like Charlie Alcaraz, should be there. What do you think? Why at this point are we still persisting with Moy, and what do you think in your head Sellers was thinking when he's picking a starting 11 with 4 players who don't really score any goals against the Tottenham side that are clearly weak?
Josh, I think it's baffling that he's still getting games. I think we spoke about him a bit on the podcast last week, and I can't remember who said it. One of our guests said it last week. He spoke about he couldn't understand why he's still in the starting 11. At this stage of the season, we can't afford to be cautious now, especially in the final third. You have to play the players that are going to give you a chance to win games now, because we have to win games. And we know that our defence is leaky. We're fragile at the back, and we saw that from that early goal we conceded. Well, that late goal and the first goal in the back end of the first half on Saturday was just we're so fragile, and we will let goals in. So, and obviously we don't score loads, but you've got to give ourselves a chance in the first place. Charlie Alcaraz has been superb for us since he's come in. He's been a bright spark. Against Leicester, I thought he was brilliant. I know wasn't great in between, but he's been good. He's been good for us, and he looks like he's going to get a shot off. He looks like he's going to create something, and he's not scared to take players on and have a go. And we need that now. You got to. Andy News, he got to get rid of him from the starting 11. In my opinion, I wouldn't pick him again. If he wants to put him on the bench, fine, but just don't put him on the pitch. Just get him out of the way. He's not a player we need in the side right now. We need match winners. He's playing in the 10 position, and whenever does he create anything? When was the last time he set a goal up? When was the last time he played a killer pass? He doesn't. You can't have someone in the side to track people around. Get Alcaraz to work harder if that's what he needs, but he does that anyway. I just think Charlie's a far better option for us, and those substitutes the weekend were real key in the game, weren't they? Like Silamana's come on, he looked hungry, he took people on, he drew fouls, and we've been crying out for that all game. But why Ali Nusi's in that starting 11, it's baffling, mate. And that's what concerns me with the final fixtures. If he's going to continue to make ricks like that, it will cost us games, in my opinion, as a fan. And I think you'll probably agree with me.
I do. I completely agree with you. The Suleimana one not starting was the one that really surprised me. To play, like we said before, we come on to play one or the other is frustrating alone. But when you play both of them together, you feel like you lose so much. And it made me think about the January strategy, bringing in Camel Dean. What position were we looking to strengthen? Did we really look at areas like the one that Samuel Edozie was occupying and say, yeah, Sam's nowhere near good enough, we need to replace him? Or would it not have made more sense to say, right, well, Sam's developing, so let's bring someone who can rotate with him? Because he just seemed, it's such a shame that he's nowhere. I put on Twitter before the game, I mean, for me, Mislav Orsic, Joe Aribo, and who else was it? I put Mislav Orsic, Joe Aribo, and Sam Edozie are head and shoulders above Moyeli Nusi, Sekumara, and Adam Armstrong, in my opinion. I mean, I would have any single day of the week, I would have them in the team over them, and it purely because even if you're not guaranteed a performance out of them, that element of changing the game. To have none of them on the bench is wildly frustrating. I was even frustrated when Sekumara come on instead of Paul Onuachu. But I mean, at least he had that good little knockdown for Theo, and he wasn't dreadful. I'll give it to Mara. He wasn't dreadful when he come on. He was actually okay. But yeah, it's some of the decision making it is baffling. And you mentioned about Moy sort of tracking around there. You probably had a better view of the Pedro Porro goal from where you were, because I'm in the northern, so I was the other end. Who did you have at fault for that? Because from where I was sat, it looked like no one tracked him back, but on the replay, it kind of, because you didn't see the second half of the pitch, it just looked like Perrault got completely sucked in and lost.
Yeah, he did. He did. Perrault got sucked in, and he was ball watching, and he didn't pick him up back post. But Moy's got to go with him, surely. We've got to be at least track. There was so much space, and you could see it opening up, couldn't you? As they were attacking, Porro's made the run, and I'm like, pick him up. He's got so much space, and Moy's, he talks about Moy's work rate, but he doesn't always track back. There's a lot of this all the time. He looks at other players all the time. I don't honestly think his attitude's that good at times. Perrault's just he's still young and he's getting better, but he's got a rick in him. And it was just like one of those lacks of concentration, and he just didn't look over his shoulder. The communication wasn't there. But the pair of them have just got, you've got to be talking all the time. Even with playing at Sunday League level, you talk all the time. You're trying to organise people, making sure people track runs. And it was just one of those really silly lapses in concentration for me.
Yeah, I think there was a bit of both. Like I say, from my angle, because I saw everything sort of going forward from behind Tottenham's defence, all I see is Pedro Porro making that run, which he'd made about 5 times before, by the way, in the same game, and we didn't learn. But I saw Pedro Porro making that run. I see the defence scrambling to try and cover that Kane run where he could make that header. And then I see he was in acres of space. I didn't even see who should have been tracking him. I think it was Moy. But I don't want to be finger pointing if it wasn't. But as far as I was aware and what I could see, that was Elyounousse's man, and he just didn't bother tracking. And I mean, regardless, stupid goal to concede. Che popping up with the goal was a bit of a shock, especially so fast after half time. He did his best to miss it, bless him. It was off the post and in, but he did actually get the goal. That was you must have. That was again down your. You got a lot of action down your end, didn't you? But you must have just come back from your half-time slash with a hot dog or something when Che popped that in, didn't you?
The kids weren't behind me kicking the chair. The family behind me, the kids kick the chair all the time. actually the second half, the kids weren't there. I was like, oh, happy days. So I was like really enjoying the second half. It was a much far enjoyable second half. But yeah, all the action was down our end. Shea, I thought, worked hard the weekend. I'm glad he got his goal. Really glad he got his goal. He deserved it. I know he's had a barren run, hasn't he? And hopefully he'll be able to get a few more now. But like you said about Sakamara, I thought he come on and done a good job actually the weekend. First time I've seen a bit more about him. He's working a bit harder. I think he's learning the league a little bit more now. It might be a bit too late for him, but there's no sign of Onuachu, is there? Again, he's not come on. You talk about that recruitment in the window, in the January window, and you do have to question what went on there and what the thought process is. You know, how much has Nathan Jones had to do with that? You know, there's a massive panic buy with Onuachu. We needed a striker. I know that we spoke many times about who we would have gone for, but yeah, we're stuck with Shea, obviously Sakamara, and you know, Adam Armstrong every now and then he'll get a run, no doubt, between now and the end of the season. Obviously, there's Onuachu. Will we see anything from him?
I bloody hope so. I mean, that was the sub I was crying for at half time. So let's get tall Paul on and cause some havoc, because obviously they'd had a defence that was already disturbed by injury and Ben Davis going off and things like that. And yeah, I just thought, yeah, tall Paul, get him on, see what happens. But I mean, like you say, Sekamara was pretty decent. It wasn't a dreadful cameo that he'd made, so can't complain too much with that. Yeah, I mean, apart from obviously Harry Kane had the free header, which was, you know, it's a shame, but I mean, it's against, you know, Maitland-Niles isn't the centre back, is he? Bless him. He was only trying to do a job. Unmarked Perisic, good finish, can't really complain. But I mean, on paper, we've conceded 3 goals from 3 shots on target, so it's a bit of a stinger. I don't think Bazunu could have particularly done anything with any of them. I'm not going to put blame on the goalkeeper for that. I think it was defensive errors. But again, most of those defensive errors actually led from the midfield. I don't think the defence were too much at fault for the goals themselves. But I was concerned when we went 3-1 down. I did think it was game over. But we did sort of have that heart to go and get the second and right at the death of the third. What did you make of that penalty call at the end? Because you're a lot closer to it than I was. I had no idea what was going on, frankly.
Kind of wanted to get back and watch it at home because I was desperate to see what happened with the penalty. It looked quite soft from where I was. I've got to be honest, in live, I thought, wow, yeah, it's gone down quite easy there. You know, how much contact was there? And when you see it back, there wasn't. We got a bit of luck there. I think, you know, it was nice to get a bit of luck because we don't get loads, and we've had a couple in a couple of games of the Man United game. Things went our way a little bit, and again the weekend. But you know, let's talk about the penalty and how good it was. You know, massive pressure moment for him. Talk about all these people saying he ain't got any bottle. You know, massive bottle. No, he's down there. Everyone's there, and getting a point out of it was going to be massive in the end of the situation. We were being 3-1 down, but you know, he took it really well. He took it really, really well. Chuffed to bits, he scored it, but Christ, it did it erupt down our end. Wow, haven't seen it so noisy down our end for a while now. So down there, and we're sort of, I've got to take my kids. I'm quite close to the family enclosure, but outside of it, it's usually fairly quiet. And most of the kids are on their iPads most of the time, but not my kids, but the kids around us usually are. So it was nice not to see the kids on the iPads and wanting to watch the football. That was the highlight of it, really.
Yeah, it was a great. It was to see it go in was fantastic. I think everyone's nerves were jangling a bit. I was even thinking, "Oh, please, just take this pressure off of Prowsey, give it Maitland-Niles because I know he can take a good penalty." But yeah, for him to say, "No, I'm still going to take it, and I'm going to take it against someone who I know very well and knows me very well and knows where I put my penalties." That had to be millimetre perfect, and what a penalty! Fair play to him. It was a lovely little embrace between him and Fraser at the end as well. You're right in the nostalgia. Yeah, it was lovely. See the big man back. It got great reception as well, which is good. And to get a point against a so-called top 6 side is always positive, isn't it? The big 6. It did sort of prompt an Antonio Conte meltdown, which was hilarious. But what did you make of that? Was it? Do you reckon he's trying to get himself the sack, or is he just complete enough of it?
I think he looks like he's had enough of it for sure. I've listened to a lot about it this week about what he said, but I think he's been brewing to say that for a while now. I think he just totally lost the plot, really. He said exactly what he was feeling, but I think he probably does want the sack, to be quite honest. His contract runs out at the end of the season, and obviously get a bit of a payout if they do sack him now. It'd be interesting to see what Levy does there, whether he does make a change. I know that Tottenham play a relegation rival in their next game, which is Everton. So I'm kind of hoping that they do sack him and they bring another manager in before the Everton game and get a new manager belts, to be quite honest, because at the moment they're an absolute soft touch to play against. He's got all the players in the dressing room. They're all talking about wanting another manager. It doesn't seem like it's a great atmosphere there. He'd be best off out of there. But whether Levy's going to pull the trigger on him, whether they come to a mutual arrangement, but it was an absolute outburst from the manager. It was up there with the Nathan Jones one, wasn't it? To be fair, it was probably a bit worse than the Nathan Jones one.
Yeah, it was absolutely bizarre, wasn't it? I mean, what was he saying? It's the history of this club. The same owner, 20 years, they haven't won nothing, and it was almost like he was blaming the player culture over anything, saying sort of, well, they've had this amount of quality coaches and nobody's succeeded, and why do you think that is, sort of thing. It'd be, like you say, I've heard about it all week. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what Levy does with it. But I think those players need to pull their finger out their ass and get a result against Everton for the good of everybody. But we'll see. We will see what happens there. We take the point. We love a manager meltdown. I'll just a quick word about Lavia at the end, because he sort of I'll stand at the bottom and sort of wait for the players at the end to do their lap, and because I'm always interested to see who leads it, who doesn't, who's not involved, who walks down the tunnel, all that sort of thing. So I sort of stick about and have a look. And Romeo Lavia was sort of stood in front of the Northern end applauding for a couple of minutes, and then the players sort of wandered over, and then they started to move over, and he sort of shouted at them and said, "No, everyone over here quickly." And then Ward-Prowse sort of led him over, and everybody came over. And Lavia was sort of pointing to the ground like that, sort of going like that. What he meant by that, I'm not sure. I mean, a lot of people sort of took it as like, we're here. This is what we're going to carry on doing. We'll see. But yeah, and then Ward-Prowse at the end, sort of pumping the badge, is always a nice one. It'd be nicer if he stays at the end of the season rather than keep pumping the badge and go down. But that's that's one that time will tell. But we take a point. I wasn't overly pleased with it because of the manner of going 3-1 down and the starting 11. I think it killed the atmosphere. But we can start strong against West Ham, which we will cover in more depth next week. Come back for that next week. But if we can get a strong start against West Ham, I think it'll be our game to lose, because they're not a great side either.